We'll start out by blocking out the basic shapes. In our Create tab, we'll draw out a box primitive, right-click to exit the creation tool, and then with our Move tool active, we'll right-click on the bottom to reset it to the origin of the grid. In our Modify tab, we can adjust the parameters. We don't need any segments. And now we'll adjust the length, width, and height until we get it to the proportions that we want. Then with our Move tool, we'll shift and drag out a copy of this, and we'll choose Instance, so that way when we adjust parameters on one of them, it'll affect the other. Then we'll draw out a cylinder, reset it to the center of the grid. We'll use the Rotate tool to adjust its orientation. If your Rotate tool is not snapping, you can click the button up here to turn on snaps. And then we'll move it into place. Now in the Modify tab, we can adjust the parameters. We don't need any segments. For the sides, we'll choose a value of 12. And then now we'll play with the radius and the height to get the proportion we want. We'll duplicate this cylinder and use it for the front cylinder piece. So with my Move tool, I'll shift drag. This time I'll make it a copy because I want them to be different. In the Modify tab, I'll adjust my parameters. And then now we'll do a similar thing for the base area. Shift drag to make your copy. And then I'll adjust the parameters so that way it's the little base section underneath that block piece. Now I want to use my modeling tools, so I'll select this block piece, right-click, and do Convert to Editable Poly. Now in the Modify tab, I can access its components. So first, we'll go into Edge mode and select those two top corner edges and use our chamfer with options to create that rounded top. A subdivision of 4 will do the trick, and then we'll just adjust that slider. And then in vertex mode, we can come in and grab that whole top area and use our scale tool to adjust it. I'll select these two side edges and use Ctrl Backspace to delete them. And then adjust these edges until I get the look that I want. To create an edge loop in the middle of these edges, I'll do a marquee selection to get that whole ring. And using Connect with Options, I can add a subdivision in between those edges. Any faces that aren't going to be seen on our model, we can just delete. Alright, the shape of the model is there, so now we can just come in and adjust the topology. For that, I'll use my cut tool. So I'll switch over to vertex mode, and with my cut tool, I'll click on the vertices and then right click to finish out that new cut, and then do that to the corresponding vertices to create four-sided faces. You can hit Alt plus Q to isolate your element, and then when you're ready to bring everybody back, you just right click and say End Isolate. We'll repeat the same process for this part. I'll delete this end face, so that way I can select the border edges and extrude those. In edge mode, you can use your transform tools plus the shift key to really easily extrude out new pieces. We need to add in more subdivisions so we can create that compartment in this center cylinder. So I'll select that edge ring and use my connect tool, this time adding in 2 new edges and then playing with the sliders to adjust where they are. Now I can select these faces for about half of it and then bevel those inwards to create that compartment area. Now I'll do a similar thing to create those strips in the center of the compartment. So I'll select that edge ring, connect it to 6 connections, so that way I can have 3 strips. I'll get it the best I can using my connect tool, and then I'll go in and adjust them by themselves. Now these strips are going a little bit further than the subdivisions that I have right now, so I'll use my Swift Loop tool to cut in some new edge loops. Then I'll do a bevel with options, so that way I can get something extruded out and then also scaled inwards. So we were really easily able to create these strips from our cylinder. But it's kind of a waste to have all these subdivisions in here. So what I'm going to do is select those strips and then detach them. And now I'll go back to the cylinder object and delete these middle faces and then perform a bridge between the 2 border edges. And then I can just use Ctrl Backspace to delete any unwanted edges. Now I have my clean cylinder back, and I have that extra detail. Now to create those details at the top of this block area, first I'm going to select these vertices and weld them, so that way I just get one edge at the top, and then I'm going to go in and select the edges where I think these little details should come out from. For the bottom ones, I'm going to go ahead and add in a new edge loop, And then I'll just go ahead and select those edges and then do a chamfer, which is going to split that edge into two. So I'll adjust the chamfer settings here. And so this way I'm going to get some new geometry, but these three are going to be the same size. So now I can go in and select those faces and perform a bevel to create that new geometry. I want that front and back edge to be at the same alignment as that very front face. So what I need to do is turn on my snapping tool so that way I can have it snap to vertices. So to do that, I'll turn on my snapping tool up here at the top, right click it to go to the options, and then in snaps I'll have it only snap to vertices. And then in the options section, I'll enable the axis constraints. So now if I move it in the y-axis, it's going to be, it's only going to snap within that axis. So the way it works is we click and drag on the axis and you'll see the target of which vertex it's snapping to, and then you just move it accordingly. So we'll do that to the other side also. And then we can turn our snaps off. Alrighty, that looks good to me. So next we will be UV unwrapping this.